believe that the oil market is going to be much better going forward compared to what it was in previous years. But even if oil price at the spot market is 64 and the budget oil price benchmark is 45, there's enough headroom for, you know, savings, and there's enough we can do. So either way, I don't see us really losing out if we still keep our oil price benchmark up.
You think we should be a little bit more cautious?
It'd be best to do that, so we have a bit more savings as opposed to increasing it, and, you know, we have nothing to save for in the rainy day.
Interesting how this oil, it looks like for everything that's going to be in this budget draft presentation today, oil price will be one thing to work for. Do you think there will be so much discussion around exchange rates? Looks like that is settled.
Yeah, it seems like that's it seems like they're going to stick to the interbank rates, but oil price may be, you know, maybe thrown on the board of discussion. Do we review upwards, or do we leave it as it is? Do we watch what the oil market is going to play out before we can make any adjustments? But so far, we still have to wait for what the president has to say. These are all speculations, and these are assumptions that our speculations are right.
Because $20 to $22 headroom. Yeah. Looks very attractive and tempting.
Yes, and it's I forgot to mention, we have our oil production at 2.2. Then OPEC has capped our production at 1.8. So is that realistic? But then if you look at the oil, our oil production benchmark for the budget is capped at 2.2. OPEC wants Nigeria's oil production to be about 1.8. But then the increase in oil price far compensates the 22% decline in production. Say we have to stick to 1.8. So net, it seems like we're still in a good place.
You think it's also good not to wave off the Niger Delta Avengers threat to come back to the business of disrupting oil assets?
Well, that is going to be a very sensitive issue. We don't know how these guys play in the Niger Delta region. But then it seems like when things go very well, they come back in and they try to, you know, bring some sort of disruption. But so far, there's been silence. So far, it seems like the government has been able to meet their needs somehow. But hopefully, they don't come back and the economy runs smoothly.
We would need the government to meet the needs of the people in the Niger Delta, and not just the militants. Yeah, because before we begin to, it's like we are paying hostage money.
Yes.
Because that's what the amnesty money looks like.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a hostage money that we are paying.
I believe they're going to come to an agreement, but uncertainty in the Niger Delta region is still a very big question mark. We're not sure how it works actually, or what.
How we're going to work that out.
Yes.
Okay, let's leave the oil story. Do you take soybean? Soy milk, something like that. Soybean.
Well, soy milk is now a very healthy option. A lot of people are moving to drinking soy milk because it has more nutritional benefits and it's extremely high in protein.
Instead of cow milk.
Instead of cow milk and the likes of that. So the importance of soybeans for the production of soy milk is gradually increasing, and there's high demand in a lot of countries. As we
why do we have soybeans in Nigeria?
We do have soybeans, but then our production is actually below capacity. So what we produce is far below our demand. So our production output is about 25% and our demand is about 75%. So there's a massive supply gap. There's a massive demand gap in the soybean.
So what do we do? We do import as usual?
Well, if you look at the major use for soybean can be used for a lot of things. You can extract vegetable oil from soybean if it's crushed, and it can be used for biodiesel. It can be used for soy milk, like you rightfully mentioned. It can be used for an alternative for and most especially actually, soybean is used in the preparation of animal feed, and that is why we are seeing increased demand in specifically China, because they require a lot of that for the poultry sector.
This is where we find Nigeria, and this is a nice, quite instructive table we have there on the screen. Thank you, folks, for that. If you look at where Nigeria is ranking side by side, with very good eyesight, I almost see Nigeria on the radar. We look like a distant star in the galaxy.
Yes.
Okay, that looks a bit better. Even with this blowing it up a little bit more on the screen, I'm still straining to see Nigeria. It looks like we are just winking in the dark.
Well, if you look at yeah, our production, we're nothing compared to the major producers.
Even with other countries in Africa, Ethiopia, South Africa, and Malawi.
In West Africa or in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are not. We're actually the top 3, but we're still doing very well in that. We are doing quite well in that sector, but a lot could be done.
And we got our production belt there around Benue, Kaduna, Plateau, and Niger State.
Yes. So soybean is grown predominantly, mostly in Benue, which accounts for 44% of most production, and it's typically grown in the high and in the uplands where a lot of where the climate is a bit more favorable. So Kaduna, Jos, Niger, and Nasarawa. So that's where we have most of the soybean cultivated. And typically, the harvest period is between. We can have harvest 2 to 4 times a year. So the turnover is actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quicker compared to other commodities like cocoa or palm oil that takes years before we have that come to the market.
If I go into a soybean, I just go to Benue State, for example, or Plateau or Niger State, I'm sure that 4 times a year I can just get making some money producing soybean.
Well, yes, if you have depends on the seed. So yes, if you have a high quality seed, yes, high yield seed, yes, high yield seed, you can produce as much. But then typically in the global market, the soybean account for $130 billion, which we say is not as much. Which is not as much.
100?
Yes.
And 30 billion.
$130 billion.
And you said that's a little small amount of money?
Well, compared to other, this is global. This is in global
just
context.
give us a very good percentage of that, because if you produce this locally and you can provide some good nutrition to women and children here in Nigeria, that'll be good enough.
Yes, well, our contribution to that is just 0.16% anyway, because our production, as it is about 550.
Let's just end the conversation there. I don't like that. 0.6%.
Yes.
Thank you, Ada. Do have a great day, and see you later in the week when the budget is out.
Okay.
And we can find out how much of that size of the budget comes to you and I. Okay. 8 trillion is the amount of money we're talking about here.
All right.
Let's come back and talk to Shewoni Bide, who is the founder at Budget. What is in the budget for budget? That's what she was talking about. Buhari's 3rd budget, and we're going to go all the way back from the 1st to the 2nd and now the 3rd.